Okay. Let us consider this example. Determine whether the following argument is valid. Okay, I didn't define the argument formally. Argument is essentially a sequence of proposition followed by a conclusion. Okay, say I have some premises. This is a major premise, this is a minor premise, and followed by conclusion. So this whole thing is called argument. Now I have to check whether this argument is valid. Okay, so here the major premise is given P or negation of Q, and minor premise is Q. Conclusion is therefore negation of P. So let us see whether it is valid or not. So we know that P implies Q. P implies Q. This is equivalent to negation of P or Q. Okay, in the last class, I proved this. Means I didn't prove it. I asked you to prove it using the truth table, and I said that this is very useful equivalence. P implies Q. This implication you can write as a disjunction, negation of P or Q. Okay, so here P or negation of Q. P or negation of Q. This can be P or negation of Q, this is equivalent to negation of, this is equivalent to, this is if you, this is same as negation of Q or P. This is a commutative property, P or negation of Q, this can be written as negation of Q or P. Okay, so these are equivalent, and negation of Q or P, this is equivalent to Q implies P. Because of this equivalence. So this disjunction can be written as Q implies P, this implication. Okay, so this I can rewrite as Q, if this first premise is Q implies P, Q therefore negation of P. Now by modus ponens, Q implies P, Q, therefore it should be P, the conclusion is P, but here I am getting negation of P, therefore this is not a valid argument. Okay, using modus ponens, I can say this using modus ponens, this is not a valid argument. Okay, this one is not a valid argument. Here is another example. It says if root 2 is greater than 3 by 2, then root 2 square is greater than 3 by 2 square. We know root 2 greater than 3 by 2. Consequently, root 2 whole square is which is 2 is greater than 3 by 2 whole square, which is 9 by 4. So determine whether the above argument is valid, and determine whether its conclusion must be true because of the validity of the argument. Okay, so let us first check whether argument is valid or not. So I will write this in symbolic form. Okay, so first let us say this P be this proposition root 2 greater than 3 by 2, and Q be this proposition root 2 whole square greater than 3 by 2 whole square. So in a symbolic form, this whole statement I can write it as P implies Q, P therefore Q. Okay, so symbolic form, this whole thing can be, the whole statement can be written in this way, this argument. So the first thing, if P, then Q. So P implies Q. This is your major premise, and this is P. We know P, so P. Therefore, consequently, we get Q. Okay, conclusion. So this by modus ponens, this is a valid argument. So the argument is valid. Okay, now you are asked to determine whether its conclusion must be true because of the validity of the argument. Argument is valid, but the conclusion is not true because this P is not true. Root 2 is 1.414 like that, and it is 1.5. So since this P is false, minor premise P is false. So although the argument is valid, conclusion is actually false. We cannot conclude, means the minor premise is false. If this is true, then conclusion is true. So this is valid argument. But this minor premise is false. So we cannot conclude anything about the conclusion. It may be true and it may not be true. Now you know that this actually this conclusion is actually false. Otherwise you will get this contradiction. 2 is never greater than 9/4. So conclusion is false. So if both in the in this in an argument this is true, then this holds. But if one of them is false, then conclusion may be true, may not be true. Argument may be valid. Okay. Now another rule of inference is syllogism. So we have 3 proposed hypothetical syllogism and disjunctive syllogism. Two syllogism we have introduced. So hypothetical syllogism, it says P implies Q, Q implies P, therefore P implies R. This is the argument. Okay, and you can show that this is actually a tautology. P implies Q and Q implies R. This whole thing implies P implies R. This is a tautology. Using truth table, you can show. I have shown it here. You do it by yourselves. So the hypothetical syllogism, this is a tautology. This is a valid argument. P implies Q and Q implies R. This whole thing implies P implies R. This is a tautology. So if you find the column of this whole thing, all are true. Okay, this column all are true. So you can use instead of truth table, you can use the elementary rules of inference also to prove that. Just simply you can use disjunctions. P implies Q essentially same as disjunction negation of P or Q. So it's some elementary formula you can use to prove this. Okay. Okay. So here I have one argument, and I have to means I have to check whether this argument is valid or not. Okay. So in English word it is written. So first your first job will be to convert it into symbolic form, and then apply the rules of inferences to check the validity of the argument. So here you are given, if you send me an email message, then I will finish writing program. If you not send me email message, then I will go to sleep early. If I go to sleep early, then I will wake up feeling refreshed. Okay, so there are so this one say you send me an email message. This is your proposition P. Okay, so from this whole thing, my conclusion is, if I do not finish writing the program, then I will wake up feeling refreshing. Whether this argument is valid or not. So you are asked to show the valid argument is valid. So if I say, so I will convert it into symbolic form. Okay, so if suppose this is the proposition P, that you send me an email message, and Q is the proposition I will finish writing program. I will go to sleep. This is your R, proposition R, and I will wake up feeling refreshing. This is S. Okay, so the first one says P implies Q. Second one says not send email. That means negation of P implies R. So first one is P implies Q. Second one is negation of P. Negation of P. So P was that you send me an email message. So it is not sending email message. Send me email message. So this is negation of P. Negation of P implies R. And this is I go to sleep early. That means this R implies is. R implies is. Now conclusion is I do not finish writing the program. Writing program, that was Q. So negation of Q implies is. Okay. So you have to check whether this is a valid argument or not. Okay, so you can simplify this. So this one P implies Q If you take the contrapositive statement, this is equivalent to its contrapositive statement. That means minus q implies p. Okay, so the first one you can write is negation of q implies negation of p. And the second one, minus a negation of p implies r. This, if you apply the hypothetical syllogism, you get negation of q implies negation of p, negation of p implies r, therefore negation of q implies r. Now these two are reduced to, this two is reduced to this, therefore negation of q implies r, and the remaining r implies a. So therefore conclusion this you write. You can check this again by hypothetical syllogism. This is the desired conclusion. So argument is valid. Okay, so you reduce your problem into this problem given in words into the symbolic form and apply the hypothetical the different types of rules of inferences, and you can check whether is the valid argument is valid. Argument means the several propositions together with a conclusion. Okay, so it is valid or not. Disjunctive syllogism, only one disjunction is used, and means a single disjunction of two propositions, and one proposition take the negation, then this implies this, therefore you get the other proposition. So take a single disjunction, negation of one proposition, and conclude that the alternate proposition must be true. Okay, so P or Q and negation of P, therefore Q. So I have one example here. Socrates is either living or dead. Socrates is not living, therefore Socrates is dead. Whether this is valid or not. So living, suppose Socrates is living, that is your proposition P, and Socrates is dead, that is your proposition Q. So Socrates is either living or dead, that means P or Q, and Socrates is not living, negation of P, therefore Q. Socrates is dead. So this is a valid argument. So you can show this is tautology. Now this is very important, resolution principle. Whether an argument is valid or not, you can check it using this resolution principle. Okay, we will describe a method where this resolution principle is utilized to check the whether argument is valid, this type of argument is valid or not. Okay, so what is resolution principle? So this is another way of proving that an argument is correct. Okay, resolution principle. So we know this literal. We define these things. Literal, we know we will mean by literal a variable or negation of a variable. Okay, so variable means the propositional variables here. Okay, literal is a variable or negation of a variable. Disjunction of literals we actually sum. Conjunction of literals says product. Disjunction means or, okay, and the conjunction is and clause disjunction, each disjunction of literals or sum, we call it a clause. We call it a clause. So suppose you have two clauses C1 and C2, and a literal L1 is a literal in C1 and L2 is a literal in C2, and it is such that L2 is the negation of L1. Okay, so C1 C2 two clauses, and L1 is a literal in C1 and negation of L1 is a literal in C2, and clause means this is actually disjunction. Then when you take then delete L1, since L1 and L2 are just negation of each other, you can delete L1 L2 from C1 C2 respectively. Okay, so L1 was in C1 and L2 was L2, which is actually negation of L1, that is in C2. So you can delete L1, L2 from C1, C2 respectively and construct a disjunction of the remaining clauses. This is nullified, means the L1 and negation of L1 in C1 and negation of L1 in C2 nullified. Okay, and you get whatever disjunction you get, that remaining clauses, that is actually called the resolvent of C1 and C2. Resulting clause is called C1 and C2. Resolvent of C1 and C2. So resolvent is obtained in this way. Suppose I have C1 is this clause, P or Q or R, and C2 is the clause negation of P or negation of S or T. Now here you can see here C1 is having P and C2 is having negation of P. Therefore, the resolvent of C1, C2 will be Q or R or negation of S or T. Okay, this is called resolvent. Okay, so we are going to show that given two clauses C1 and C2, the resolvent of C1 and resolvent C of C1 and C2 is a logical consequence of C1 and C2. What do you mean by logical consequence? That means if C1 and C2 is true, then C is also true. And when C1, C2 both are means false, C is also false. So one of them is false and C is false. So this is logical consequence. Let me check. I have. So logical consequence means this resolvent C is logical consequence of C1, C2. It means whenever C1, C2 both are true, then C is also true. This resolvent C is also true. Okay, so for example, suppose modus ponens. Modus ponens is P or Q, P, therefore Q. So you can write it as this is negation of P or Q. This is clause 1, this is clause 2, and this is the conclusion. Okay, so clause 1, this P implies Q, this is equivalent to negation of P or Q. And the clause C2 is P. Resolvent of C1, C2 is this P is nullified, therefore Q, which is a logical consequence of C1 and C2. This C1 and C2. Modus tollens is P implies Q, negation of Q, therefore negation of P. So first means when you write clause, you have to convert it into disjunction. So this is same as negation of P or Q. So first clause is negation of P or Q, and this is negation of Q. Okay, so this Q and this negation of Q nullifies, and the resolvent you get negation of P. Okay, so logical consequence of this C1 and C2, this C1 means this form, this junction form. C1 and C2 is this conclusion. Therefore, this is actually valid argument. Okay, so resolvent of C1 and C2 is negation of P, which is a logical consequence of C1 and C2. Means, if this is true, then this is true. Okay, so let us prove that if you get the if you get the resolvent of C1 C2 in this way, then essentially that resolvent C of C1 C2 is a logical consequence of C1 and C2. That means whenever both C1 and C2 true, C is also true. This is very easy proof. To prove the theorem, suppose C1, so I have two clauses C1 and C2. Suppose C1 is L or C1 prime and C2 is L, negation of L or C2 prime. So L is some literal. L is a literal which is in C1, and remaining part of C1 is this is or C1 prime, and C2 prime is having negation of L. Remaining part of C2 is C2 prime. Then C equal to C1 prime C2 prime is resolvent of C1 and C2. Okay, so we are going to show that if C is a logical consequence of C1 C2. That means if C1 C2 true, then C is also true. Assume C1 C2 true. Now I have the proof here. C1 is this one, C2 is this one. C1 prime or L. This is C2 prime or negation of L. And C is the resolvent of C1 C2, which is C1 prime or C2 prime. Assume C1 C2 both are true. My claim is C is also true. C1 C2 true. Now this L may be true, may be false. In case L is true, if L is true, then negation of L is false, and in order C2 to be true, C2 and C1 both are assumed to be true. So if L is true, negation of L is false, therefore C2 will be true provided C2 prime is true. Okay, and C2 prime true means C is true, because this is disjunction. C2 prime, this is plus. C2 prime true means C is true. In case L is false, you can argue from here L false means, and given C1 is true, this means C1 prime must be true. C1 prime true means here C is true. Okay, so whenever C1, C2 true, C is also true. So C is a logical consequence of C1 and C2. Now the most important thing, resolution principle. What is resolution principle and how to apply it to check the validity of an argument. Okay? So given a set of clauses, so I have a set of clauses, a resolution or deduction. We call resolution or deduction. Deduction, so deduction of C from S. So I have a collection of connection of clauses, and the S is a finite sequence of clauses C1, C2, Ck. Okay, S is a finite sequence of clauses C1, C2, Ck. From this collection, we deduce, we get a deduction or resolution C. Okay, given a set of clauses, a deduction C from S is a finite sequence, C1, C2, Ck, C1, C2, Ck of clauses such that each Ci either is a clause in S or a resolvent of clauses preceding C, and the final Ck is C. Okay, so S is collection of clauses, not this particular clauses. Okay, so given a collection of clauses, our deduction of C or a resolution of C from this set is a finite sequence of clauses C1, C2, Ck, where these Ci's are either in this set or it is a resolvent of clauses preceding this. C1, C2, Ci minus 1. So resolvent of C1, C2, Ci minus 1. Some of them. Okay, either a clause in S, or this Ci is either a clause in S or a resolvent of clauses preceding. It should be Ci. It should be Ci, preceding Ci. And final Ck is C. Finally, this Ck is C. That reduction finally we get C. And a deduction of empty clause is called a refutation or a proof of S. Okay, if you get a deduction, this deduction is finally the empty clause. You get it is called a proof of S or a refutation of S. So we can apply this for validity check of an argument using this resolution principle. Okay, suppose I have premises in the argument. I have several premises P1, P2, Pn, and suppose C be the conclusion in the argument. So argument means P1, P2, Pn. These are premises followed by P1, P2, Pn. Therefore, C. This is the argument. Okay, so in argument we have premises P1, P2, Pn, and C is the conclusion of the argument. Conclusion of an argument. Okay, so what I will do, put P1, P2, Pn in clause form. Each of this proposition you have to write in disjunction. If it is implication, you have to write in disjunction. Okay, so each of these premises you write in disjunction for clause form, and add to it, means following it you write the negation of C. And then apply this resolution principle. From this sequence, if you can derive this empty clause, then the argument is valid. So P1, P2, Pn and negation of C. Okay, so from there, if you can get using this resolution principle, if you get this, derive this empty clause, then argument is valid. Okay, so this from this set, this set is different, a collection of clauses. You just use this resolution principle. Means you a finite sequence of C1, C2, Ck clauses you will get. Each clause is either in this set or this is a resolvent of resolvent of clauses preceding this Ci. Resolvent means resolvent, as I said, one literal, if a clause is having a literal L and another clause is having literal negation of L, then you can construct a new clause just deleting this L and negation L. Okay, that is the resolvent. So you form the resolvent in this way. And finally, if you get, in this case, if you get empty clause, ultimately, then actually this argument is valid, because we have taken all these premises together with the negation of this, and we are checking whether we get empty clause or not. Let us illustrate this with one example. Very simple example. Modus ponens. P implies Q. P therefore Q. Okay, so this resolution principle, we will construct a sequence of clauses. First clause is C1, so this you have to write in this junction, so negation of P or Q. Second clause is C2, P, and the negation of the conclusion you have to take, negation of Q. Now if I resolution, if you take the resolution of C1, C2, I get Q. So this I call C4, new clause C4, just taking the resolution of C1, C2. Then taking the resolution of C3, C4, I get this empty clause, resolution of C3, C4. Therefore, ultimately, since I am getting this empty clause, this is modus ponens. This modus ponens is correct argument, this valid argument. Okay, so you can use this resolution principle by listing down all the premises in the disjunctive form, and also writing this negation of take the negation of your conclusion, and finally if you can deduce this empty clause, it is a valid argument. Okay. I have, okay, so this is this, let me illustrate this, let me explain this example also. The following argument is correct, show that the following argument is correct. So it says, if today is Tuesday, I have a test in mathematics or economics. If my economics professor is sick, I will not have a test in economics. Today is Tuesday and my economics professor is sick. Therefore, I have a test in mathematics. Okay, so you write it, convert it to logical notation, symbolic form. So what I will do, I have a test in mathematics. Today is Tuesday. So you denote it by T. Today is Tuesday. This is the proposition T. I have a test in mathematics. This is M. I have a test in economics. This is E. And my economics professor is sick. That is S. So the argument is, premises are T implies M or E. T implies M or E. If today is Tuesday, I have mathematics test or economics test. So T implies M or E. If my economics professor is sick, that means S, I will not have a test in economics. So S implies negation of E. S implies a sick professor is sick, then I will not have a test in economics, negation of E. Today is Tuesday and my economics professor is sick. That means this is Tuesday T and E. Therefore, the conclusion is I have a test in mathematics. Therefore, M. Okay, so whether this argument is valid or not, I will using the resolution principle. I can convert it. I can check the validity of this. So putting is clause form. So this one in clause form, it will be negation of T or this. So implication P implies Q is negation of P or Q. So negation of T or this. So clause C1 is a negation of T or M or E. This one is negation of S or negation of E. So you have to write all of them in the disjunction form. Negation of S or negation of E. And this is T and S. So you write T and followed by S. Disjunction means T and S. So you write T here, S here. You divide it into 2. And you have to take the last clause, the negation of this conclusion, negation of M. Okay, now you combine and you check the argument is correct or not. I have got the answer correct. So this C3 and C1, if you take the resolution, T is cancelling out. So I get C1 and C3, T is cancelling out M or E. So new clause is M or E. M or E, and negation of M you take, you get E. This E and this C2, you take negation of S. And this S and negation of S, you get empty clause. Okay, so you check it on your own. Okay, you do it by your own. Okay, the argument is correct. So this type of problems, if you are asked, then you have to convert it into the logical notation, and you can use the resolution. If the method is not specified, you can use the resolution principle. So all the premises you have to write in the along with the conclusion, you have to write in this disjunction, and you apply the resolution principle. Okay, or otherwise, if the method is not specified, you can use that method also, simplification, that rules of inferences also you can use, that also you can use. Okay, so how many variables are there? T, M, E, S. If you go for the truth table, it will be not that easy. Okay, so instead of that, means you have to, for truth table, you have to, there are 4 variables. So therefore, their number of rows will be 16. Because each of the variable is having either two truth assignments, either true or false. So this will be very big. Instead of that, using this resolution principle, it is far better to decide the validity of the argument. Okay, let us pause a little. Okay. Okay, let us now introduce predicates and quantifiers, and using these we will illustrate with some examples the arguments, some arguments, and how to apply resolution principle to check the validity of those arguments. That involves quantifiers, predicates. So let us introduce what we mean by predicates, what are the quantifiers. Okay. Predicate refers to a property that a subject of the statement can have. So any sentence has a subject and a predicate. Okay, so x is greater than 3. So in this, x is in this statement, x is the subject. The variable x is the subject, and the predicate is greater than 3. This is the predicate. Okay, so x is greater than 3. We denote it by px. So, for example, validity check, when you take particular values, assign particular values of x, this statement becomes a proposition. Okay, so this, if you denote this by px, propositional, this is a propositional function. This is a function of x. Take particular value of x, say x equal to 4. 4 is greater than 3. This is true. 2 is greater than 3. This is false. P2 is false. P4 is true. Okay, so, so px is a statement. Now, when you assign a value to this x, it becomes a proposition. So px is a statement. P is called a propositional function of x, and it becomes a proposition once a value is assigned to this variable x, and then it will have either a value true or false. It has a truth value, either true or false. Okay, so you can, this is one way predicate. You can generalize it n way predicate. So the propositional function of n variables, x1, x2, xn. This is a statement. When you give a particular, so this is n array predicate or n place predicate consisting of n variables, and whenever these variables are assigned particular values, this statement is a proposition, and this p is called a propositional function in the variables x1, x2, xn. Okay, value of the propositional function p of x1, x2, xn is the value of the propositional function p at the tuple n tuple x1, x2, xn. So some particular values are given to these variables. Say for example, r x y z denote the statement x plus y equal to z. This is a statement. This is not a proposition. So r x y z, this is a propositional function in the variables x y z. Now find the truth values of r1, 2, 3, r0, 0, 1. So r1, 2, 3, 1 plus 2 equal to 3, r1, 2, 3 is true, r0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0 is equal to 1. This is false. Okay, so this is false. Now propositional functions occur in computer program also is if x greater than 0, then x is x plus 1. So x is incremented. Okay, so here px is the statement x greater than 0. So it says whenever px is true, whenever x is greater than px is true, then x is incremented, otherwise not. If px is false, value of x, for a value of x, then value of x is not changed. This assignment is not executed. If the if px is true, this part is true, then assignment x equal to x plus 1 is executed. The x is incremented by 1. Okay, so this is the predicate. If this, then this. This is the predicate function, propositional function. Okay. So px is true, then x is incremented, px is false for some particular value of x. When px is true, px is the statement. This, when you assign value to x, it becomes a proposition. Okay. Predicates are also used in verification. Is verification in computer programs that the computer program always produce the desired output when given valid input. So there are preconditions, postconditions. For example, it's a very simple example I have taken. This actually I took it from Rosen. Okay, so you can find this in Rosen itself. Okay, so temp is x, x is y is temp. So I'm interchanging x and y. So we will define predicate pxy. X equal to a, y equal to b. This is your precondition, and predicate qxy, that is x equal to b, y equal to a, postcondition. Okay, so means either this segment executes properly or not. Means this swapping is done or not. So pxy true. If pxy true, then this is precondition. Pxy is here. Pxy is this x equal to a, y equal to b, and post condition qxy. After that, I write a post condition. This predicate. Okay. So if pxy true, then qxy is true or not. This is a validity check. Pxy true. This program statement will when we run, then qxy must also be true. Swapping. Okay. So this is what where this predicates can be used for verification. Computer programs always produce the desired output when given valid input. If pxy is valid, then input is valid, then output is also valid. So in this case, so pxy is a statement x equal to y equal to b. Suppose pxy is true, that means x equal to a, y equal to b holds. Okay, so this is my program statement: temp equal to x, x equal to y, y equal to b. Okay, so temp equal, when temp, this first line, when we assign temp equal to x, then x equal to a, y equal to b, temp equal to a. temp equal to x is as, right? So if suppose pxy is true, then that is x equal to a, y equal to b holds. Now in the first line, when I assign temp the variable x, that means it is giving x equal to a, y equal to b, temp equal to a. Now second line, it says y equal to b, temp equal to a, and x is replaced by the y value. X is now y, x equal to b. And the third line, it is temp equal to a, x equal to b, and y is replaced by temp value a. Temp value a. Okay, so after that qxy true, it becomes qxy true. So pxy true means qxy also true, because here it was x equal to y equal to b, here it is x equal to b, y equal to a. So propositional function, when you assign a value to this variable, you get a proposition with certain truth value. Okay, certain truth. This is propositional function. Assign a particular value to this variable, you get a proposition with a certain truth value. Now another term is quantifiers. Quantifiers, there are several quantifiers, universal quantifiers for all x, px. For all x, px. Existential quantifier, there exists x, px. Uniqueness quantifier, there exists unique x, px. So this is another means to create a proposition from a propositional function. Predicate is true even predicate is true over a range of elements. So there are several other quantifiers. There are exactly two. There are no more than three. This universal quantifier with this notation is used. Okay, this for this there is no notation. You can always define notations, your own notations, but these are standard notations. Okay, so predicate logic and predicate calculus. I will predicate calculus. This actually deals with logic, deals with these predicates and quantifiers. Okay, so here the statement for all x px, this means what? When true, that means px is true for all x. When false, that means there exists some x for which px is false. And there exists x px. This means when true, there exists some x for which px is true. And when false, when it is false, that means for all x, px is false for every x. Okay. Now, when you use this, you have to define the domain of discourse. The domain of this variable, universe of discourse. This universe of discourse is assumed to be non-empty for quantifiers. Okay, so very simple examples. So if your propositional function is x plus y greater than x, so this is always true for all. So you can write x plus 1 greater than x. So it is what is the truth value of for all x px? Truth value of for all x px, it is x plus 1 is always greater than x, right? So this is truth value of this is true. Okay. Okay, where the core you means when you use these things, you have to define the domain. Here, the domain is a set of all real numbers. Set of all real numbers. Set of all real numbers. In case this x less than 2, domain consists of all real numbers. Okay, so for all x qx, this is false. Because if you take 3 is not less than 2, therefore it is false. And there exists x qx, this is always true. There exists x qx, this is true. Okay, so when you have your domain of domain is consisting of only a list of elements. Okay, x1, x2, xn. Then for all x px is essentially a conjunction. So suppose I have only finite number of elements x1, x2, xn. Then for all x, px essentially means px1 and px2 and pxn. Because for all x, px will be true if and only if each of these px1, px2, pxn is true. And there exists px, in this case, this is this junction. px1 or px2 or pxn. If at least one of them is true, then it is true. If and only. Okay, so quantifiers with restricted domain. Suppose I have this. For all x less than 0, x square greater than 0. Domain is real numbers. For all real numbers, negative real numbers, square is always positive. So this is, if you write in sentence in English, it is the square of any negative real number. Square of a negative real number is always positive. This is same as the statement for all x less than 0 implies x square is greater than 0. Okay, and in case there exists z greater than 0, such that z square equal to 2, domain is real numbers. So in English it says what? For there exist positive real numbers. There exists positive. Okay, so z greater than 0. Z square equal to 2. There exists z greater than 0 such that z square equal to 2. That is, there is a positive square root of the square root of 2 which is positive. Okay, there exists some z greater than 0 such that z square equal to 2. That means there exists positive square root of 2. This is same as the statement there exists z such that z greater than 0 and z square equal to 2. So this there exists, when you have there existing, it is not the implication. It is not implication. Whereas for all this type of thing you have, this is implication, but this one there exists, it is not an implication. Okay? There exists z greater than 0 such that z square equal to 2, domain real number. So this is essentially means there exists some positive square root of z, square root of 2, positive real square root of 2. So there exists some z which is a square root of 2 as well as which is positive. Okay, so this way. Okay. So precedence of quantifiers, this is for all there exists, they have higher precedences over other logical operations from proposition and calculus. For all x, px or qx, this is same as for all x, px. So this is for all x, px. So with this, it will be executed first. It will be executed for all x, px, or will be executed later, or as having means for all is having higher precedence. So this for all is for this one, not over the whole thing, px or q. So this is not this one. Okay, this implies for all x, px or qx. Okay, this. So there are binding variables. Say for example, I have this. There exists x such that x plus y equal to 1. So x is bounded by this existential quantifier. There exists x. X is bounded here. Y is free variable here. Okay. There is another thing. This is binding or binding variables. X is bounded here with this. There exists quantifier. Y is free. There is another thing we call scope of a quantifier. Okay, so for example, there exists x px and qx, or for all x rx. So this there exists, the scope of there exists is quantifier there exists is the expression px and qx, and scope of this second quantifier for all x, that is the expression rx. Okay, scope of a quantifier is the part of a logical expression to which this quantifier is applied. So there exists, it applies only to this part of the logical expression, and for all this quantifier is applied only to this expression. Okay, so this is free variable, this is bounded variable, this is scope of a quantifier this type of thing. Okay. Okay, logical equivalence involving quantifiers. This is let me stop here. Okay, let me stop here. I will start it in the next class.